Rain poured down the tinted windows of a glass tower where power, wealth, and silence lived under the same roof. Inside, the CEO of the city's largest corporation sat with her 3 young children, triplets, each one mute since birth. Their eyes spoke volumes, but no word had ever passed their lips. No maid, no nanny, no specialist could handle their storms of frustration and fear. They screamed without sound, they wept without explanation, they shattered plates and threw toys, yet behind their chaos was something deeper, a cry the world couldn't hear. Every attempt the CEO made to bring someone into their lives ended the same way. The caretaker would run out in tears, declaring the job impossible. The mansion became a revolving door of failure, until the day a man with quiet eyes and scars on his hands walked through the door. The single dad didn't come with promises, fancy degrees, or charm. He was a veteran, a man who had seen deserts burn and nights freeze. He carried himself not with pride, but with the weariness of someone who had fought too many battles and lost more than he cared to count. His own daughter clung to his side, shy but radiant with trust, her presence proof that love could bloom even in the hardest soil. The CEO glanced at his resume, it was thin. A note about military service, odd jobs since, nothing polished. She almost dismissed him on the spot. But the way her triplets stood still, wide-eyed, watching him, something she had never seen before, made her pause. That night, chaos erupted again. The children were restless, throwing their toys, banging on walls. The maids hid in the kitchen, trembling. But the veteran stepped into their world without fear. He knelt on the floor, eye to eye with the triplets, saying nothing, offering only presence. One boy threw a block at his chest. He didn't flinch. Another stomped the ground in anger. He simply tapped the floor in rhythm, turning rage into a beat. The third child, the quietest, reached out slowly and tugged on his sleeve. The man smiled, soft and steady. For the first time, the storm calmed. The CEO, watching from the doorway, covered her mouth in disbelief. Days turned to weeks. The triplets began following him everywhere, into the garden, the kitchen, even when he took out the trash. They trusted him because he didn't try to fix them. He understood silence. He had lived it after war, after losing brothers in arms, after waking to nightmares in the dark. Silence was his companion, and now it became their bridge. He taught them simple signs, gestures from his military past mixed with patience only a father could hold. Slowly, the children began to communicate, not with words, but with light in their eyes, with small motions, with trust. The CEO's world began to change. She, a woman of power who once ruled boardrooms but could never rule her own home, found herself learning from this humble man. She saw her children smile when he was near, something she thought impossible. At night, after meetings and endless calls, she would pause at the doorway, watching him read stories in soft whispers her children couldn't hear, but somehow felt. They curled against him, peaceful. The mansion, once filled with tension, now breathed warmth. But behind his calm presence, the veteran carried struggles. He was a single dad too, balancing jobs to keep his daughter clothed and fed. Every day he stayed with the triplets meant less time to provide for his own child. The CEO noticed the worn shoes on his daughter's feet, the patched backpack, the way he never asked for more than the modest pay she had offered. Pride kept him silent, but his eyes betrayed exhaustion. One evening, after a long board meeting, the CEO returned to find her children asleep on the couch, her mansion finally quiet. The veteran was in the kitchen, washing dishes by hand. She approached, voice softer than it had ever been in years. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. He looked up, puzzled. "That your little girl needs more than this salary can give." He shook his head. "I'm not here for money. I'm here because your kids needed someone who wouldn't quit on them." His words hit her deeper than any deal, any contract, any success. The next morning, he packed his small bag. He had planned to leave, the strain of providing for his daughter and caring for the triplets pulling him in 2 directions. When the CEO saw him at the door, her heart broke in panic. The triplets clung to his legs, refusing to let go, their silent tears screaming louder than words ever could. She dropped to her knees before him, her voice shaking. "Please, don't leave us." For the first time, the unshakable CEO was just a mother, begging for her children's peace. The veteran hesitated, torn between duty to his daughter and the bond he had formed with these mute triplets who had found their voice in him. Then, something happened. The quietest of the three children stepped forward, trembling, and pressed a piece of paper into his hand. On it was a shaky drawing, him, holding the hands of all four children, his daughter among them. Above it, a word written in broken letters, family. Tears welled in his eyes. His daughter, standing nearby, reached for the triplets' hands and smiled shyly. In that moment, he realized he didn't have to choose. The CEO, watching it unfold, knew what she had to do. She offered him more than a salary, she offered partnership, stability, and a home. Not out of pity, but because she had seen his worth, his courage, his heart. The mansion became a different world after that. The triplets, once lost in silence, now laughed in whispers of joy. The veteran's daughter no longer walked in worn shoes, but in a home where love stretched wide enough for her too. And the CEO, who once begged strangers to solve her problems, found herself transformed by a man who taught her the greatest lesson. Leadership doesn't begin in the boardroom, it begins at home. So if you're still here, listening to this story, let it remind you